The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forests that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight we are discussing geoengineering. Tonight on our panel we have Eric Markham, our Forest Moon Paranormal Scientist, R. Keith Andrews, astrologer and alien specialist for Forest Moon Paranormal, Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson of Four Corners Paranormal, myself, Corey Reese, and tonight we have back, though sounding a little rough, our leader, Mr. Cooper. I turn the comm over to you.
All right, bear with my voice tonight. It's awful. I've still got bronchitis, but we're on the upward mend, believe it or not, as awful as I still sound. But hey, coming to you live from the, frozen mountains of Concrete. It doesn't know what it wants to do, whether it's going to rain or freeze or... Sun came out today for a minute. So, we do have a lot of things on the plate coming up locally that I still need to work into the calendar. We have a couple boots on ground cases. We have a training exercise coming up. We had to cancel our joint team meetings. We have to reschedule that again. But you know what? Life goes on. Everything gets rescheduled, and we move forward. So, tonight's geoengineering and chemtrails. And, folks, geoengineering is going to cover a broad spectrum tonight. And I want to give a shout-out to my boy D in California. He has the unique pleasure of listening tonight. So, enjoy, D. So how's Pamela doing tonight?
Not bad at all. How about you?
It's a good evening.
Oh, I'm
Doing
doing.
Hey, look at the bright side. You're still breathing.
Exactly.
Kinda.
I took my Z-Pack. I've got my albuterol. We're good.
Just hang in there.
So, exactly. So my voice needs to recuperate. So what do we know about geoengineering? Before we get too much farther, I want to talk chupacabra, because it got brought up earlier tonight. So, switching over to Keith for a second, well, maybe more than a second. Tell us about chupacabra there, Keith. And it is geoengineering on the alien side, not the human side.
Well, in all fairness, not exactly geoengineering. It wasn't deliberate. See, the problem with the chupacabra is, number one, it's not exactly a mutation. It's a pet, or more to the point, was a pet.
Right. Which race was it a pet of?
Tekla. The little
Oh,
raptor,
God.
like. Yeah, just what you want
Right.
here, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, I guess.
Oh, everybody's off in the distance here.
Cooper, where'd you go?
It's awful early in the night to lose him.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Well, from what I understood of chupacabra, like, there's been sightings in the mainland, from Maine all the way down to Chile, and then also in Russia and the Philippines. And I know I've seen videos and stuff, but the videos I saw were just like canids or dogs with mange. But from sightings, you know, it's always explained as small bear-sized critter with like spikes on its back all the way to its tail, and then it's got like, you know, Dracula-type teeth. Like it can suck the blood through its teeth. So to me, it seems like some sort of hybrid or alien species. But like Keith was saying, you know, alien pet kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and the thing is that, number one, it wasn't released per se, so much as they got out.
Yeah, pets get away.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And especially when you can't stay out and govern them. You know, if you can't go outside to, you know, to bring your dog back in when it runs away, you know, you're pretty much hooped.
Now, the question I had that was discussed earlier is how come we don't see them so much, and how come they're not reported? Did the Techlex come back and pick them up, or are they still here and just not seeing?
Well, in all fairness, they're better at hiding than mankind is at seeing. Is what it really boils down to. You know, the thing is, number one, they know how to blend in, and because of the configuration on the back of their neck, especially if you're in long grass, you're not going to notice. You know, on the whole. The other issue, of course, is that, quite frankly, because of the speed that they can move, and the fact that they happen to be nocturnal, meaning most people won't see them anyway, there's all sorts of things going against trying to sort of pin them down.
Well, they still have to get out as a breeding pair, though, right? I mean, they just don't spontaneously, or do they parthenogenesis, or, you know, there had to be there had to be a male and a female, or some kind of self-replicating thing to get out.
In all fairness, more than a, but yes, you are correct. They are not.
Well,
you know, they don't spy. They don't. What are they?
It's not asexual.
No. Asexual. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you very much. They aren't asexual, right? But they do breed kind of like rabbits. I mean, now, mind you, the reason they breed like rabbits is because where they come from, they die off pretty quick.
They have a short lifespan.
Well, no, but they are edible. And in the wild where they live, they have to breed fast.
Okay, so they're like intergalactic rabbits. What they are is a fast replicating food source for apex predators.
Bingo.
Well, and maybe they have some sort of like camouflage or something, like a chameleon or whatever. Maybe
only by configuration.
The sightings are few and far between, so maybe they can blend into their surroundings, etc., and not be seen. And sometimes when they are seen, they're just surprised and they didn't even realize it.
And more often than not, that's the case. The thing is that because of the speed that they can move and the skeletal configuration, they blend into the natural surrounding, especially in the shadows, making it very difficult to pin them down. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not seeing more sightings of them simply because of their hiding or their camouflage?
Essentially, yes. They're hard to spot.
Gotcha. Now, are they still migrating? Because last I heard they were in Texas, Mexico, I believe Brazil.
Well, that
Puerto
Texas
Rico,
crap
what?
is just, those Texas things they're calling chupacabras are nothing but coyotes or wild dogs with sarcoptic mange. That is not a chupacabra.
Exactly.
That's just bull.
No.
You know, we're not seeing them, but they got to be eating something. So what are we seeing? A population decrease in something else that would necessarily point to these things are in your area?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to understand these things will go after. Like, you wouldn't notice population decrease in, for instance, rats, right? You're just not going to notice it unless there's a massive one. So these things are feeding off of whatever small animal they can get a hold of. The big animals that you find out about are few and far between.
So they're basically eating vermin and, but even then, if you have, their numbers must still be small. Because they can't be that many, or, even the rat population, people would notice, hey, we don't have near the rats we used to have. I mean,
thank goodness.
They're cute.
Now, if they would just eat walking stick bugs, I'd get a herd of them.
Yeah.
And cockroaches.
Nice.
The only
get rid of cockroaches.
The only problem that I see in your theory, Markham, is that if you look at places like New York City and other places like that where rats are so prevalent, I mean, it would take quite an enormous appetite by a pretty massive population to actually bring down that population enough to really notice. I mean, some of these places where you've got small vermin like rats and other things that breed so prevalently, it would be almost impossible to bring that thing down. I mean, they haven't been able to do it with exterminators or anything else, so, that's the only trouble I see with that train of thought there in that aspect. So it's kind of hard to say.
That'll be a way of determining whether they start getting into sufficient numbers to make an impact.
Well, it seems like if it's a sneaky, cunning creature, it'll go into like the sewer or somewhere that people they're not going to discover all the carcasses, whatnot. Like, I don't think they're going to be out where everybody else is. They're going to be in a place where nobody goes.
Well, you will still notice prey species dropping off. Look at what pigs did. You look what feral cats and pigs have done to the native species of Hawaii. That's a perfect example of how when an invasive species comes into a new environment and find, and struggles to live and find something to eat. You see,
but also, but you're also talking United States, areas. They don't track the same, I'm sure, in, say, Brazil and, other countries where chupacabra has been spotted. So you may not notice invasive species or, loss of a different species in those areas. Because if we're going under the assumption that what was spotted in Texas was mangy coyotes, then we're not talking chupacabra at all. Whereas you're talking about the sightings in Brazil, Puerto Rico, places where maybe those things aren't counted so much. Here's a theory.
Well, that's just it. I mean, number one, there's not a vast array, there's not a vast number of the chupacabra on the planet. That'd be
right.
The first issue. Okay. Second issue, and this is why when we're talking about a population decrease, most people are going to be looking at it going, well, you need X number of animals to keep a breeding population. And given the lifespan of the chupacabra, if they're not killed, it's no wonder they're still floating around. You take them out of, like any animal, you take it out of the environment where there's a natural predator, and you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these things don't have a natural predator here. Now, thankfully, there aren't that many of them, but they do have a very wide range.
Now, to your knowledge, they're smaller than cougars.
They're about the size of a wolverine.
Yeah, they're small. They're small.
Yeah. But there's only one problem with that. These things will outrun a cheetah in the woods. And that's where they get where their strength comes in. I mean, don't get me wrong. The cougar is a phenomenal hunter. Yeah, which is definitely a plus on the hunter's part. Yeah, I mean, let's face it.
Now,
go ahead.
What is the lifespan approximately of them? Or did you already go into that?
No, well, I didn't. All I said was it was awful long. If we go with lifespan, not life expectancy, two very big differences. You're looking at close to 150 years.
Okay. Now, I remember back in the 90s when I first got into the alien side, which chupacabra kind of fit into that. There was a lot more sightings reported back in the 90s, which is why we were asking, why don't you see them so much today? So why aren't there so many reports today?
Well, part of it is actually
they've adapted.
They've adapted and they figured out how humans operate.
Right.
Well, and I think they probably have a migratory trail that they, travel.
Yeah, they have to go where the food is.
Around in one place.
Now, are they semi-sentient, or, I mean, are they beyond, like, say, are they, what am I trying to, I mean, are they at least chimp smart, or are they smart enough to think of things like, okay, we've eaten too many chickens here, let's move over here and give the population chickens a chance to come back.
I don't know if I call it.
So.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it analytical, which is what you're referring to, or seem to be. But they certainly have an instinct for maneuverability. In all fairness, it's more often a case of moving out of the area if they figure there's a predator in the area. And they know once they settle in that something's going to come, which is, it's more survival that moves them, as in avoiding predator that moves them, than it does in following the food supply.
And I think they also realize when they've been spotted, and they move on that too. Like you were saying, the survival part of them.
That's exactly the point.
The angry chicken farmer with the shotgun is a signal that I've overstayed my welcome. It's time to move
Pretty
on.
much, yeah.
Now, are there any other alien races that hunt them?
Well, the Sarzazian actually hunt them quite nicely, but the ones that you'll love, that actually go looking for them. You're going to love this one. You know that funny little critter that they showed you on a neat little show called Predator?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's not exactly a myth.
No, I figured that because, I mean, Bigfoot has the exact same cloaking device.
Well, no. But they do have the same
similar
side effect.
Right. The digital pattern.
Well, more to the point, Bigfoot simply knows how to blend. The Predator actually knows how to. It does it from a technological standpoint. The only thing they don't do is they don't have the nuclear arm bracelet. Yeah, that was a Hollywood adaptation.
Right.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
And
so,
I don't
moving on.
I don't even call that necessarily a digitized pattern as so much as it's a light bend. You know, you're bending light around something, and that's what you see.
And they've got that in Japan now. They've actually got a beautiful setup in Japan for driving trucks on the highways.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
It's the same principle.
They've actually come up with sort of like Harry Potter's invisibility cloak.
Essentially, yes.
Well, I saw one that was debunked as well, like the guy going through the garden and stuff. That one was just green screened. It wasn't real.
Oh, there will always be that sort of.
But there's like an MIT, I think it was MIT. Let me look that up.
But I'm sure it exists. I mean, there's the technology out there. There's people out there
somewhere
with
here in North
digital editing.
I'm thinking there's a lab here not far from me. I think it's in Research Triangle Park in just about an hour east of me where they're working on the technology.
Who funds it?
Oh, DARPA.
Okay.
Oh, it was North Carolina State University. It was right there.
Nice.
It was right. North Carolina State University built a cloak that rendered an object nearly invisible in 2007. Purdue University's been working on it, but I thought I'd read something about that. And it wasn't too long ago in Discover magazine they had an article how they were using, I think it was some kind of weird exotic material like a nanotube that acted like a fiber optic element, and whatever was behind you, it bent it around to look like it was, in front of you, and it would actually mask whoever was staying behind the device.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the idea of bending light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, let's face it,
magic.
humans do have some incredible developments that they come up with.
Well, there's so much crap that we don't know about I mean, it's...
Well, if I remember right, they were using that on the Apache helicopter as well, some of the newer generation ones. And being around the Apache back in 95 through 98, the technology they used on those birds, everything was run by the helmet. The pilot would put the helmet on, and the turret would actually turn with the helmet. And this is back in the mid 90s. So it wouldn't be a big jump for them to be using light technology to mask the Apache now. Now, what's scary about that, with the Apache, they can be 2 miles away and hit your house without you even knowing they're around.
Well, you find out about it. It's that little pop before you disappear off the map.
Oh, Apaches and AH-10 Thunderbolts. I mean, wasn't that the infantryman's hero? It's like the tank busters and the...
We were told that our camis were sewn and had a certain thing in it to where they can't be picked up by satellite and certain other things. It's kind of like a camouflage from satellites.
Now, you do realize they were lying to you, right?
Most likely, they generally do.
Just thought I'd ask.
Okay, let's jump to chemtrails as we're moving along. We'll jump back and forth. I don't care. It's all geoengineering chemtrail stuff. So, I'll get back to the 90s. I was researching chemtrails as well.
Cooper kind of faded out there again, buddy.
Coop.
I hate this phone.
I was going to say, we need to do a GoFundMe to get Cooper a Bluetooth headset for his phone.
Oh.
Actually,
right,
don't even have to do that. I can go down into Costco and for $40 get those 3M WorkTunes ones that Bluetooth to your phone. They sound great on a phone call. I've used them. I've got a pair.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I use a Bluetooth headset when if I'm home and I'm doing a show with Joe Roop or Dave. It's too hard to keep a headset up to your ear for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Like
definitely.
to get cauliflower ear.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've got this nice microphone on a stand here. It kind of works out good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I lucked out. I tracked down an old headset that actually works better than everything else I had.
Yeah, you sound better tonight.
Well, I got the headset working. The computer dang near collapsed, so I spent 4 hours repairing it with techs out of somewhere down in the States, I think. And now everything's working, so,
All right.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
All right. I put it on damn speakerphone. So, chemtrails. So I was studying chemtrails back in the 90s. I believe it was Seattle. But somebody actually got a cleared goop off the windshield that came from the sky. And when it was analyzed, it was a streptococcus. So what do we know about chemtrails? Why are they doing it? And what are they doing?
Well, what they're trying to do is, quite frankly, they're modifying a lot of things all at the same time. Number one, poisoning the population to try and keep it a little bit more docile. That'd be your first problem. Second thing is they're trying to do a wholesale modification of the way the planet is running on the auspices that they're actually helping the atmosphere. Part of the chemtrail issue is, quite frankly, tied to what they're doing with HAARP in trying to figure out first-generation and atmospheric generators. You got to figure out how the atmosphere works in order to actually to create one, if you will. And then, of course, we have the secondary set of chemtrails that are coming in that are being used for, that are actually being used to counteract the first set. In other words, all chemtrails aren't being put out there by the same people.
Right. Some of them I know have been seen as white airplanes and basically morph into UFOs. That's been one case. Which lends, I know some alien races are doing chemtrails along with the government. Would that be correct?
Not exactly with. That would be the counteracting issue. You see, mankind is supposed to be protecting the planet, not modifying it. Okay. But because of the scope of the chemtrail activity and the doctrine that says the off-worlders can't exactly come in and clean up the mess, they are kind of hampered by in their efforts.
Right.
You know, that's where it gets to be a little conflicted.
The off-worlders have to be looking at what's going on in our culture right now. It's like watching your mother-in-law backing off a cliff in your new Mercedes. It's like, yeah.
Now, come on, they don't celebrate that much. Oh, wait. No.
It's just different.
ultimately, mankind is at a turning point. Mankind is either going to get its act together and start working as a unit, or it's going to virtually eradicate itself. So from the off-worlder standpoint, this becomes an extremely exciting period from the standpoint of civilization evolution. Okay, and the chemtrails are providing them with vast arrays of research data to see just exactly how far man has come down the pike as far as mankind's ability to work with biochemical engineering.
Right.
You know, so this is the other part of why they're not shutting it down completely, because the information is just absolutely fascinating. Now, I know from a human standpoint, when you're dying from the stuff, it's not that enjoyable. But, you know.
But in the long run, you know, the old expression about omelets and eggs. But I remember, I think I was in 6th grade maybe when the first gene splicing was done.
You weren't alive when the first one was done.
Well, the first one they publicized.
Oh, okay.
When it became, you know, in the United States, it was reported that researchers had spliced the first gene. I remember then the ethical, you know, outcry was, you know, where will they stop? And, you know, chimerism and all this stuff. And
it ain't right.
Well, yeah, it's against God. But, well, I've done it. I mean, I did research in college that required me to make E. coli that were ampicillin resistant. And they would actually show up on a plate a different color than the others.
How enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean.
No, it's terrible.
But I had the gene, you know, I had this book about 3 inches thick that was the, you know, basically the gene, the plasmid DNA of the E. coli and what regions you could splice in. Well, it's just basically it looks like a donut, and there's just areas that you can take a piece out and then put another piece in, and it will change what the E. coli, what the organism does.
Scary.
Which, you know, when you think about it from that standpoint, is extremely exciting, especially from the, you know, from a scientific standpoint.
Well, it's exciting, but it's scary as well, like how easily it's mutated. It really doesn't take a lot for a cell to be damaged and for it to mutate, and then, you know, it's just basically chasing your tail, trying to chase it and figure out how to fight it.
Essentially correct. but you can't figure out how to fight something if you're waiting for it to show up in, what's happening is they're trying to figure out how to deal with it before it becomes a threat, and in so doing, they're making it a threat in the first place.
Well, it's sort of like the way they do the flu vaccine. They try to anticipate what serotype is going to, kill everybody. And I think for the last 2 years in a row now, they've missed it.
Well, yeah, because they're using outdated information. You take last year's strain, don't use that for this year.
So
well, why don't you follow that strain and see where it goes,
Are they missing it on purpose?
Well,
frankly,
I work for an organization that makes me take the flu shot every year. If you do not have proof that you've taken the flu vaccine either here or at your doctor's office approved, basically you lose your job. No questions asked. You miss the deadline, you're terminated.
That's a pretty good
sounds like the military all over again.
Yeah, it kind of pisses me off because I don't want to take the damn thing. I feel like I've had more health issues in the last 5 years since I've had to take this damn flu shot, and it just gets worse. Yeah, I mean,
I've only taken them when I've been pregnant because they suggest you do that to protect the baby. Otherwise, if I'm not pregnant, I don't take it because every time I take it, I get sick, and it lasts, like you said, forever. So
I'm still trying to figure out how, and this is the thing with the flu shot and why I absolutely refuse to take it, but they're using basically a strain that the body has just developed an immunity to, which knocks out the body's natural ability to fight because it's occupied fighting this one. Right? Like, I keep looking at it going, like, why would you actually force anybody to take it? I mean, I understand, Markham, why you're taking it. Let's face it, your job relies on it.
Yeah, I've been running flu assays all day.
Yeah.
Probably a couple dozen already.
But, from a medical standpoint, or even from a scientific standpoint, if you just look at it from the science side of it, it makes no functional sense to do it the way they're doing it. Now, if you're looking at it from an economic or from a control standpoint, it makes total sense.
And yeah, again, why are they going to push something on you knowing it doesn't work? Other than for control.
Yeah.
Well, they call it the best guess. They call it the best guess concoction. I mean, they're upfront about it. They don't know what's coming on. They just.
They got to get a different person running the guessing machine.
There is.
What?
What are we up to? I think 100 deaths in Washington State alone.
There's a few of them.
From flu.
There's a few of them, and I know
really
some.
High.
I know people that work in the medical field, and they said that the flu vaccine this year has been roughly 30% effective, which, when you talk about the complete masses, is pretty small percentage. What I find very interesting, when I look at this, is that you see the flu come back about the same time every year, and then it goes away. That doesn't make much sense to me. Why would a virus just go away and then come back like the same time every year, but different? That doesn't.
Maybe it's
that doesn't compute. Now,
sure.
if you think about it for a second, and you think about all of the chemtrails and different stuff that you see going around out there, I'm thinking. My opinion here, I am thinking that it's more likely that these guys that are doing this stuff are using the flu to study the gene splicing and the mutation effect on viruses and other things, and they're using the flu for that. And each time, every year, they just drop it on us.
Very nicely put together.
So basically taking your blood and checking things, or
it's called poisoning your own population.
Yeah, it's just
you have to have population control, and they do it in different ways, whether it's through weather or sickness or natural disasters, etc., or unnatural disasters.
Well, in all fairness, most of the natural disasters are just that. They are being amplified by man, but they're not being orchestrated by him.
Well, let the scientists kick in and tell you and kind of demystify why there's a flu season. Okay?
I think that's a great idea.
People get flu year-round, but it's very sporadic because we're outside up until it starts to get cold. Then once it gets cold, we tend to stay inside. And when you concentrate people, their communicable diseases pass more readily. So you get cold season, flu season. This stuff comes because it's seasonal. People are they're not spending as much time outdoors. They're spending more time cooped up in the same spaces. So that one person that was going to get the flu anyway now inoculates everybody in his office space, or everybody, it's more of it gets in the heating systems, it gets in, let's keep, air conditioning can calm it down, but in the summer or in the winter, people have their heat on, which helps incubate. So, it's seasonal environmental factors, which is why we have a flu season. And every country, that experiences a winter has a flu season.
Well, yeah, I think it holds on
that
to
makes
the
total sense.
Strain of the virus. During that cold season, it helps it to survive and thrive and pass on to the next passenger.
Because you get an antigenic
dinner.
Well, you get an antigen. It's like, just like when kids bring the flu home or a cold or something home from school. It takes forever to get rid of it. You get it from them. It takes on antigenic markers. It evolves in you. You pass it back to them. They pass it back to, it's just this virus just keeps getting a little bit different so that the immune system has to readapt to it. And you get, oh, God, I used to hate it when my kids would come home with a cold. It was like, here goes 2 months sniffling, sneezing, and coughing. But that's why.
Yeah.
And the flu is a virus, so it does the same thing. The viruses are amazing at mutating.
Well, and as much as I can,
I'll be back.
As much as I can see that type of thing, and I understand the mutation effect that happens within humans as these viruses pass across. The only thing that I look at a little bit is that some of these mutations are pretty extreme. And I mean, they're more extreme than what you would think you would see in just the natural mutation process. And that's why, like I say, my theory is what a better way to experiment with the genetic splice and mutation process than to hide it within a virus like the flu. You do your experimentation with it, you breed it, you take it up in a chemtrail and spread it, and see how well it does, what it does, which are the things that you played with does. Because you notice each time that it seems like we get this flu, you have some of your base symptoms, but sometimes you get some really weird symptoms out of these things that, is just pretty far off of even what a regularly mutated virus would be from the previous year.
Well, what I've noticed with this year's flu virus is, generally they're like, if you're a little baby or you're an elderly person, come and get your vaccines. But it's killing everybody, like any age range, healthy or not. Like, it's taking people left and right, and it's pretty scary.
One of the things about a flu virus, though, is it's outside of a body, outside of a host. It's really not got that much viability. But the problem is, if you were to be able to see, like one person sneezes or coughs, and you could see how that cloud of organisms spreading off that person. I mean, if you're within 5 foot of somebody that sneezed, you just got a nostril full, millions of colony-forming units worth of inoculant from their sneeze.
That reminds me of that commercial.
What?
So Shauna's got a question for you, Markham. What cleaning agent kills it? It's just basic soap and water, isn't it?
Well, no, flu will kill it. Lysol, any disinfectant will pretty much kill it if it stays on it long enough. But really, they say, washing your hands, and really, it's not that viable once it gets outside of a host. That's the problem, though. You get it, you get it on.
I'd also.
But bleach kills just damn near everything. I don't know if there's any organism out there. Usually there's a saprophyte or, something that eats anything. I mean, there's even a mold that eats the coatings off of camera lenses. I mean, there's molds that eat glass. There's a saprophyte for everything except bleach. I don't think there's anything. Bleach never gets moldy, never rots, never spoils. So.
Yeah, bleach is potent stuff.
I'd also, when you go out, like in public, to the store, I always use those sanitized wipes on my cart, and I try to breathe through my nose because people are coughing everywhere, and your nose is a filter. Like, don't be a mouth breather. Breathe through your nose. And also, don't use the hand sanitizers because those break down your antibodies and stuff that you're meant to have. Those break those down, and so you don't have a buildup, and you don't fight as well as you would.
Well, the main thing, though, too, I mean, they don't really do anything but peace of mind. They kill a little bit, but then whatever's left behind doesn't, next time, it passes on the resistance. So hand sanitizers are basically BS. And I grew, my test organism I used back in college was Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is, that's the stuff that if you're a burn victim, you're probably going to die. If it's, if they can't keep that off of you, you're going to die. And the triclosan that they put in hand soap, I do not remember if I ever got a concentration high enough of that stuff in my test auger that Pseudomonas wouldn't grow. I think it was like a ridiculous amount before it really had an effect on killing germs. So it kills a little bit of stuff, but not a lot.
So basically, soap and water is crap.
No, it's not. I mean, if you're washing your hands with soap and water, it's the detergent action that helps. Now some organisms are susceptible to soap. Don't get me wrong, but things like things like Pseudomonas. I mean, Pseudomonas can metabolize anything. It is just this, it's the possum of the the microbial world, there's very little it can't, live on.
Mm.
And I wanted, that was the research I was doing was based on, burn victims dying of Pseudomonas infections, and my research was, and they were pushing the triclosan hand sanitizer or the hand soaps in the healthcare industry at the time. And my research was, well, how effective is this crap over just using standard, what the soap we used to use, what surgeons would scrub with. And basically, it didn't have an effective concentration as far as Pseudomonas went. There's other things like E. coli that your dial soap will take care of. But you can have an antimicrobial bar of soap and culture Pseudomonas off of it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I think the friction of rubbing your hands together is the most important part of washing your hands. You don't really need soap. You need water and the friction of washing that off your hands.
Well, also
the
soap. Well, the soap acts as a surfactant. It takes stuff that's against your skin and gets it up out of the crack. It sort of floats stuff up off your hand. So yeah, the detergent surfactant action of the soap helps. But yeah, the friction, that's why they say rub your hands briskly under the water. You're knocking crap loose and pushing it down the drain.
Yeah.
Which, is really kind of important when you think about it.
Well, back to the geoengineering subject, what I had picked up was what they were doing was spraying sulfur into the atmosphere, but that's done to reduce carbon emissions. And so they try to do renewable energy or store it underground, which, I don't even know how effective that would even be. But Harvard has come up with a new Scope X program where they're sending a space ball up and spraying aerosol, which we all know is bad for the ozone layer. But sulfur is as well. Sulfur eats up the ozone layer as well. But they're spraying aerosol and trying to refract the light and trying to mimic volcanoes by spraying basically diamond dust or calcium carbonate. So that's safer because if you spray sulfur dioxide into the northern hemisphere, it would reduce hurricanes. If you do it in the Atlantic, however, the southern hemisphere would cause more hurricanes. So it's, safer to do the calcium carbonate and diamond dust instead of sulfur because sulfur causes hurricanes, etc., and eats the ozone layer.
So I reckon my question, too, is Santa brings up X in the sky. When they do chemtrails, why are they making X's? Why would they want to be a little more secretive? Why would they want to be a little more secretive?
Well, number one.
Every time I see it, it's an X, and I'm definitely, every time I take pictures, there's X's. That's the most common. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a certain, chemistry or whatever they're trying to accomplish, or what.
Well, think of it from simply...
ley lines or something,
No, it's just because the flight path, a lot of these aircraft that are laying down these chemtrails are commercial flights, or their flight. If you catch, I just saw it the other day and I didn't have a camera with me, there were two aircraft passing each other. Of course, they were at different elevations, but they didn't have the chemtrail contrails on. They had the short ones like we grew up with back in the 70s. You'd see that one that probably only stretched a couple miles behind it. and they cross, but they would cross each other. So what we're seeing when we see these X contrails, that's just the natural flight paths. If you look at a grid map of what's going on at any given time, there's flight lines that are crossing each other, intersecting all over the country, all over the globe. The thing is, they show up as X patterns because they're hanging in the air longer.
So basically,
it's just a natural phenomenon of the flight path.
So basically, they're disguising it with flight paths.
I live next.
I want to differentiate real quick, though.
Okay.
The difference between a contrail and a chemtrail. Now, we all know a contrail is usually the dumping of fuel, because it's kind of like exhaust in a car, whereas a plane is releasing fuel into the atmosphere, whereas a chemtrail is what we see in the skies. Now, is it a contrail that makes the X's, or is it a chemtrail?
It'd be both.
Technically, it's both, but quite frankly, from my standpoint, my money's on the chemtrail for two reasons. One, I know what they're up to, but much more importantly, if it were contrails, they'd have been up an awful lot sooner than what they came.
Exactly, because contrails dissipate.
Well, yeah, they do. Like, almost immediately. They'll be there for a little bit, and then they dissipate. But with chemtrails, they just sit there forever, and then finally they dissipate eventually, but it's nothing like a chemtrail.
Right. I just wanted to differentiate that for our listeners.
Well, it seems to me that part of the reason that they would be doing the X patterns with the chemtrails is, I mean, if you're going to hide it or attempt to hide it, which they do a pretty poor job of that, is that you would use the natural flight paths that you would see contrails on to spray the chemtrails on, so that way that most people would be none the wiser. Now, it's been, I have seen some reports that have said that they were using what looked to be commercial aircraft, but if you looked closely at the aircraft itself, it was unmarked. And they were using those ones specifically for chemtrails, not the contrails, but chemtrails. And so I'm, you think about it for a second. Obviously, they didn't think that one fully through. If you're going to unmark a, because there's going to be people looking for it. Now, understandably, the masses aren't. They're it's a plane. Well, big deal. But for the many of us who are looking,
they're going to see it that high up.
Yeah, but for the many of us that are looking for it, we're starting to look to see, is that thing marked or is that thing not? I'm kind of curious to wonder how long before they're actually going to mark some planes so that it looks like a standard commercial airline.
Yeah.
Well, I do find the whole thing kind of fascinating, personally.
Well, what better way to get something like that? All you got to do is add it to the fuel. I mean, that's how mosquito foggers work. They heat up an insecticide. I mean, a chemical engineer comes up with something that can withstand being vaporized with, the heat of a jet engine, and boom, there's your chemtrail. Or in a lot of cases, you need the heat of fusion. You need the heat as a catalyst. I mean, this stuff could be going into the fuel as, benign or, in themselves, not any kind of particular, hazard other than, what jet fuel is anyway. But under the heat of combustion, the heat acts as a catalyst and creates these chemicals that we see lasting all day. The chemtrail, the actual modern chemtrail.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things I was reading, said that if you had something powerful enough, some type of scope that was powerful enough that you could actually see when they were doing this, up in the air, and you could actually see the aircraft closely enough that they had nozzles that were next to the engines on the wings that was spraying this stuff out.
Does anybody ever get pictures of those on the ground though? These damn things got to land somewhere.
Yeah, but you know that even if they are using the same flight patterns as a standard commercial aircraft, they ain't landing in a commercial aircraft airport. I can promise you that.
Good. All right, and on that, Corey, we are at the top of the hour, so it is time for a break. And then Ron's got an excellent question for Markham when we come back.
Yes, it is time. When we come back from break, we will continue our discussion on geoengineering. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, R. Keith Andrews, astrologer and alien specialist for FMP, Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson of Four Corners Paranormal, myself, Corey Reese, and Eric Cooper of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. Check out Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott Monday through Friday, Spaced Out Weekends with Joe Roop Saturdays, and Elizabeth Anglin and Cosmic Passport on Sundays, all at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, check out The Fringe FM with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or SpacedOutRadio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit SpacedOutRadio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
Welcome back, everybody. And for those of you just joining us tonight, we are discussing geoengineering. What is happening with it and what to look for. On our panel we have Eric Markham, R. Keith Andrews, and Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson. Hey. Welcome back, everybody.
And thanks
for always fun. Every Saturday, we love it.
Thanks for having me.
That's always a pleasure. So geoengineering. So I've got a thought here. You know, back in the 70s, I think even as far back as the late 60s, we had cattle mutilations. Now, cattle mutilations were, I'm trying to think here because there's a whole lot of patterns. Some thought it was cult activity, some thought it was predators, but basically you're talking about cows and horses that were actually surgically, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, we didn't have lasers, but there were organs that were surgically removed by a laser.
Yeah.
So, is it possible geoengineering started back then?
Oh, geoengineering, quite frankly, started way before then.
But were the cattle mutilations part of that?
But from what I understand, yeah. Cattle mutilations.
I think whatever.
Go ahead.
Whatever's prevalent, you know.
See, the funny thing is, a lot of this stuff has been going on, quite frankly, for a lot longer than just the last 20 years. Now, granted, the chemtrails are one of those examples where it's only been recent. But that had to do with the fact they didn't have any planes to get it up there.
Well,
getting back to...
As far as I can think of, you look in history books and you see where, you know, there was, throughout history, where there was different groups or something that would put stuff in water supplies and everything else just to see how it would affect other people. And I mean, I'm talking like way back, 1500s, 1600s type of stuff.
Bingo. Hence why I said it's been going on a lot longer than people figure. Quite frankly, it started off way back, well, actually before, but one of the more prevalent areas was back in Egypt. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but Attila the Hun was not I forget the word, pulling the blank, but he was not against doing wholesale wipeout on a via water tables and that sort of thing. And Genghis Khan was even better at it.
Oh, waterboarding?
No, using water supplies.
Wiping out water tables.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although he was pretty good at the waterboarding too. It's just he kept forgetting to take his foot off the guy's helmet.
Right. I figured. So something puzzles me. If these elites are covering us with chemtrails, they're poisoning themselves as well.
Yep.
Well, they might have
Why?
a certain supplement that they take, you know.
Yeah,
but is it to poison us, or is it to refract the sun from the ozone layer that's destroyed?
Well, here's the silly part. First and foremost, yes, they certainly have what they think are the antidotes. But they forget when you throw this stuff into the atmosphere, nature has a real bad habit of modifying it on you.
Right.
Okay, you know the old saying, if you want to give God a laugh, just tell him your plans.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with the amount of negative energy that is being pumped out by people's thought processes, oddly enough, and they'll figure this out in about 20 years, I suspect, but it modifies the genetics that they're working on. So when you throw a fragile element into the air, like what we're talking about, and you're going to have to forgive me for forgetting what the what the actual scientific name is there, Markham. But when you're throwing something that has a fragile cell structure, even if it's a resilient little critter, it's going to be modified by the negative energy. And, of course, you generate that by making everybody afraid. And all of a sudden, you've got a heck of a mess on your hands that you can't control.
Yeah, they've proven over time that they, doing experiments with just positive and negative type music on plants, what it can do. From the start of a seedling.
Well, even water.
So it's quite the experiments that they've been doing, and seeing the results of it was quite amazing. Just on using a plant and music, quite astounding. So it doesn't surprise me at all that and I think Keith's right on the fact that they let this stuff out in the air, whatever it may be, that it's going to have a mutation effect, that their whatever antigen that they've got isn't going to work at some point. And then as well on top of that, I think that people and other things, with the amount of negativity that we've got throughout the world really right now, but pretty heavily concentrated here in the U.S., is going to have a serious effect on everything, including even right down to cell structures.
Absolutely.
So is the consortium involved in helping neutralize this?
Yes. You see, mankind is not supposed to destroy the planet, although they're trying. Or so it would seem.
I think the perfect petri dish is like our kids. My kids come home with stuff all the time, and they spread it around to everybody. I think they pass it out at school. Here you go, kids. Here's some viruses. Take it home. Share with your family. Have a good day. Goodbye.
So Sean's asking, how do we stop this? And I really don't think there's a good answer for that, is there?
Mm-mm.
If you can educate the the people in a position of power, that would help. But I really don't get the feeling that you're going to have a whole lot of luck in it, because the people that are in the control seats think they know what they're doing.
I also think if you grow and raise your own foods, try to stay away from public places. The key is to stay home. when you're at home, try to go outside as much as possible, because staying inside you get more pollution than going outside, because everything's built up in there. But yeah, try to grow your own stuff, raise your own meats, do things like that. Or if you can, buy from a friend that does that.
Well,
try to stay away from things that are, sent out to the stores for everybody to mass buy. Try to get stuff that isn't coated in pesticides and waxes and all kinds of other goodies, that they want us to eat. Like, most of our food is outlawed in other countries. But when you go to the store, you're not only going to pick up food, you're going to pick up all the freaking diseases that are out there. The flu bug, whatever else is going on, you're going to get it. And if you don't get it there, your kids are going to bring it home from school.
Much as I'd like to agree with you, there's one thing I do feel I should probably point out. If you're growing your plants or feeding your animals on your own property on this planet, you're getting the chemicals.
Yeah.
But not as highly concentrated as you would buying commercially.
Well, no, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part, if I just look back at 86 when St. Helens went, we're, 400 miles from there, and we had ash all over our roof, all over our deck, where you could actually shovel it. And that was just one. These guys are doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, and no matter what we do, we're breathing in crap every day, unless you're running around with a mask on your face like people do in Tokyo and stuff. Like, you're breathing in the crap through the air, you're bathing and drinking the water, you're doing all the things that, the man wants you to do. And it's all about population control and keeping things to a certain minimum. And it's pretty big this year.
You notice that population control thing isn't working that well?
It kind of is.
As the saying goes off-world.
It's actually big numbers this year in deaths, so I think it's kind of working out kind of well for them.
Well,
it's not going. It's not going as fast as they'd like it to be, though.
Well, the population's still rising.
We're stronger than they think we are.
Mind you, I guess the good news is, if you're trying to have a population drop, what they're working towards is going to work like a charm, but they're really not going to like it. And it's sort of Mother Nature's terraforming that's going to do it. Not mankind's terraforming, but Mother Nature.
Right.
Well, part of the reason why it's not working as fast as they'd like it to work is because if it did work as fast as they'd like it to work, it most likely would affect them as well. I think
that is the other point to it.
Okay. Okay, so Joe's going to send some samples to Markham, and I'd be curious what he's got. Because Joe in the chat room has been collecting chemtrail goop, gunk, whatever you want to call it.
That's interesting.
Now that ought to be fascinating for you, Markham. I know it would be for me, and I'm not the scientist.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
What does Joe have?
Gunk has been falling from the skies.
Oh. That'd be very interesting.
Into his beard, or?
Onto his property. Onto his property.
Just wanted to clarify.
So
no DNA contamination or anything, we're all good.
So besides the consortium, are there any other races involved with helping stop this? And do we know who's doing it?
Who's doing the stopping or who's doing the starting?
Who's doing the starting?
That would be man.
Is it the elite? Is it what you would call the Illuminati? Is it there's so many different words for these people.
Yeah, it's what you would call the elite. The Illuminati are an interesting bunch, but they're very fear-based little group, and they don't really think things through too terribly far. Even worse than what the elite do. Well, so-called elite. No, it's the people. It's quite literally the so-called elite that are behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and frankly, I really myself, I just don't call them the elite because I don't see them as any better than anybody else, which probably doesn't impress them, but.
Right.
But no, the consortium is very definitively. They're the ones that oversee who can do what here.
Well, what about like the Third World Order or whatever the crack that is?
The New World Order?
Yeah.
Now, I like to compare these people to, if you have seen the TV show The Blacklist, the Blacklist refers to them as the Cabal. And I think that portrays them very nicely.
Okay.
Yeah, and it seems to fit. You know, the thing I find...
I'm not going to give...
Go ahead.
I'm not going to give anything away from the show, but look for The Blacklist, because I know you can find it on Netflix. And it shows who the Cabal is and how deep they go. Bear in mind, it's a TV show.
Yeah, but it's one of those TV shows that is rooted in essentially a reality base.
Exactly. Just like we were talking before the show, there's the X-Files, another excellent show to watch that is very reality-based.
Yeah. And quite frankly, with the X-Files, quite well done.
We lost Tessa here. I'm working on getting her back.
Okay.
You know?
Hey, it's not me tonight, but it will be soon. But yeah, folks, watch TV shows, because some of them are very much based on reality. And with a little bit of drama thrown in for good measure. But Chris Carter from the X-Files was very rooted in government projects. As far as intel goes, he himself wasn't. But he was fed certain intel and brought out kind of, the government's form of disclosure in an entertainment format.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of that going on even in kids' cartoons. Like, I was watching that earlier. A lot of Disney, and it's a lot of adult humor, etc. But in, like, DuckTales, they had Ask About the Illuminati. There's different stuff like that, and there's, I can't remember the guy that's cursed to walk Earth until the end of time. But there's so much going on. Illuminati, other secret organizations that are running everything, and nobody even realizes it, that the president has no power. He's just a puppet, and, down from there, everything is just a facade.
Most of it is. But the one thing I do want to point out for people, the one thing to keep in mind is, I absolutely agree it's orchestrated by a certain group of people, but those people happen to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they could be hybrids. I don't know. I haven't met them yet, so I couldn't tell you exactly, but I think
the crazy thing is,
I think there's a lot of hands in the pot, and whoever stirs the pot needs to be licking the spoon.
Well, the problem is, they talk about term limits for senators and representatives, and we've got term limits for president. Those people don't last. It's the bureaucrats that run the shit behind the scenes that have been in those offices, and that's where the corruption, that is where the cancer is its most insidious. These these bureaucrats are there forever. They don't answer to anybody, and it's just there's no control. There's no responsibility. It's like, president comes and goes in 8 years. The bureaucrats that were running things and being the garbage wrapped in skin are still there. They never go anywhere.
Well, it's kind of like Weekend at Bernie's, They're there forever, and then once they can't do anything anymore, they're still, there, but they're controlled by a different entity, Weekend at Bernie's, yay, this is fun, I mean, it's just not legitimate. There's nothing legitimate about our government anymore, really. It needs to be redone, basically.
Well, and unfortunately, and unfortunately, it never will. I think from this point forward, unless there is drastic action, you will never see a tangible government again.
Well, here's the problem. That critical shift is going to happen in the very near future. With a little bit of luck, it won't be in our lifetime, but I'm not betting on luck. It's never worked well for me in the past. But the thing you have to look at is the stopping, the changing how the government runs, quite frankly, has to start by changing how the kids are thinking.
Well, I mean, it needs to start where they're not paying our soldiers. That's bullshit. You pay our soldiers, and you don't pay yourself. And, yeah, that might be a nice beginning. And what they're doing right now is bullshit.
Language.
And it has been for a long time.
Language.
Sorry. I was just
so
going after President Trump.
Markham, we have a question from Dawn for you. Her mom wants to do a DNA thing, but she can't produce a spit. So she told her to swish a bit of water in her mouth. Would that work for DNA?
No, because there's organisms in the water, even the most pure. If you did it with, oh Lord, the swab's really the only way to go, because spit's going to have oral flora in it. I mean, an accurate DNA has to be done off tissue, actual cells, and there's a purification process and everything else. So, the oral swab is the only way to go, really.
Okay.
Or tissue sample, or something that's pure. Blood is really the best. I mean, your blood is a sterile body fluid. If it's not, you're screwed.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, if a DNA test doesn't really run on or utilize aseptically drawn blood, I don't think it's really worth the money.
So you can't get
and yes, you would, but you're also going to get all the other garbage. And it's going to be probably in equal proportions, so they're going to run it, and you're going to get the gene. I'm not sure how. Actually, that might work. A little bleeding gum, or now blood, aseptically drawn blood is the best thing. The cheek swab, I'm pretty sure, even with the cheek swab, I haven't done that kind of collection, so I'm not sure. Usually anything I did DNA on, it was blood or it was tissue. There was no chance that there was an outside. It was 100% pure sample. Test subject sample. I've never done the cheek swab DNA. I don't know what they do for purification. I've always wondered about that with the cheek swab. How do you purify? Because the mouth, I mean, if you've ever seen a media plate that has been incubated from just a mouth swab, it would make you swear off kissing.
Yeah, right.
I think with the cheek swab, what they're looking for is actual cheek skin cells for the DNA. I don't think they're actually using saliva. I think they're actually looking for skin cells inside the mouth.
Well, yeah, but one of the criteria we have, and you get this, when we do a culture on a respiratory sample, a lot of times we will get one that's not really from the lung or from the trachea. It's out of the mouth. It's basically spit. And spit has all the organisms that are in your mouth plus a bunch of epithelial cells. And we actually have to, if we've got fewer white blood cells we do a slide and look at it, and if there's fewer white blood cells than there are epithelial cells, we can't, that's not a valid specimen. We actually have to call it spit and recollect. Because it's,
Right.
Well, I've been privy to a couple DNA tests. I had to do a mouth swab, and my daughter and her, I call it her donor, and, just to get the genetics on her father, it was the father, etc. And then my husband did a DNA test because this lady came out of the woodwork and was like, hey, I'm your sister, that you never knew existed, and so he had to spit into a spittle. And it came back, but it was very, not pinpointed. You could be from Ireland or Scotland or this island or that island, or you could be from here or there or there. It wasn't just one or the other. And then I had to do another one. They have DNA tests for cancer now as well, which is one that I just recently did, and I'm waiting to come back. There's so much stuff out there, and it's amazing how they can do these things, but I think they all work. It's just a different way, and one could be more accurate than the other.
Well, I know the way I did it was super accurate because what I was dealing with was strictly the specimen from the donor. But I'm not sure, I haven't worked in that kind of laboratory in 20 years. And I don't know what, I'm curious. I'm going to actually look into this because I'm curious to know, how are they purifying this specimen? How do they know that when they put that thing through the genetics that they're getting 100% human specimen from a cheek swab?
Yeah, and I would think blood would be the most accurate way to get DNA, I would think. Or hair
blood and
follicles?
tissue.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I use deep tissue cultivated from a autopsy sample.
Like a biopsy?
Let's see. Yeah, like a thin needle biopsy. The stuff I was using was prime source, 100%, aseptically collected specimen from the research subject. So I was either using blood or tissue. I wasn't using, and then there was a whole procedure for extracting the DNA from that. But I knew I was, 99.99999% sure when I put that stuff in the ethidium bromide gel and ran it through the gel or ran it through the PCR machine to get enough to test with, that I had 100. My specimen was, 100% pretty much. As close to 100% as you can get in science.
Well, it'd be cool if, since you're so close to the field, if you could see how high the percentages on accuracy each test is. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's hard. That's probably going to be hard to find the data on because it's been so commercialized. What if it comes back after all these people have spent their money that Ancestry.com or whatchamacallit, that their results are only 20% accurate, or maybe they're just making the crap up as they go along. Just because they say it doesn't mean it's true, and I don't know that there's any regulatory body. What I do for a living, we get 3 or 4 different agencies. The Joint Commission on Hospitals comes through, and then we go through the College of American Pathologists comes through, and they're the sticklers. And our procedures, everything, we have to answer to somebody. And I'm not sure that these ancestry testing labs answer to anybody. Even a small doctor's office has to answer to a regulatory body. The acronym is COLA, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it stands for. But, you know, it's basically a body that comes through and makes sure you're doing things and getting accurate results.
Yes,
right, because
calculated affirmation of something.
Every medical body has to go through some kind of a board. Now, what JCAHO usually covers is educational hospitals. If your hospital has some kind of a training, teaches new nurses, teaches new doctors, that's mainly where JCAHO comes into play. OSHA also covers, to a certain degree, medical facilities, but JCAHO is the biggest one.
Well, one of the labs I worked for was a major blood bank, and we did stem cell, cord blood, stem cell, you name it. We had, of course, College of American Pathologists. We dispensed platelets and, other, cryoprecipitate and other things. So we had the Food and Drug Administration. Plus, we had the American Association of Blood Banks, and that's just the ones I can think of. And all of these have very stringent controls and very stringent regulations, and there's no wiggle room when you're working with blood bank stuff, because in a lab, I can kill somebody easily by screwing up in blood bank. So they have that tamped down so tight but these, as far as I know, these people, they advertise that this is what they're doing. For all you know, they look at your name, do an internet search, run it through an algorithm that makes a pie chart, and there's no proof that they do crap with that swab.
No.
And there's no regulatory body. It's like, okay, here's case in point, the guy that does the pillow commercials. And he said the official pillow of the American, I wasn't going to advertise for him because I think he's a snake. But, his thing is the official pillow of the American Sleep Association. Well, guess who founded and runs the American Sleep Association? It's not a real thing. It's something, it's a paper trail, and it's a trademarked association. But the guy that makes the pillow founded it. It's his, it's like
that works out well.
That's literally the fox saying, "I'll guard your hen house."
Yeah, that really.
And here's my American Chicken Guards Foundation endorsement.
You really don't have to give the guy credit, though. It worked.
Yeah, the guy's making millions.
Well, like Barnum said, no one ever went broke. There's a sucker born every minute.
There is every day.
Yeah. So, Markham, we're coming down to the last 20 minutes of the show. I want you to go into, but for the listeners, if they find a sample for a chemtrail, what is the proper aseptic collection to get a sample without contaminating it to get to you?
God, I take for granted having this crap at my fingertips, but unless you actually get into a laboratory supply catalog or have your own autoclave or pressure sterilizer, it's kind of hard for the home scientist to do this. But
no. How do they get a sample to send to you without contaminating?
Well, that's what I mean. That's it. You got to have sterile supplies. You find sterile cotton swabs They'll say sterile, and they'll be individually wrapped, each cotton swab. And I mean, not like the cute. Actually, I tell you what, if everybody will buy anybody that's collecting samples they want to send me will agree to, like, let's just say we'll use Q-tip brand Q-tips, because then I can buy a box, I can run a background study and see, get a baseline of what comes up if I dip one of these things in saline. What kind of contaminants are on board, and then I'll have that baseline. So what you will do is you're going to want a sterile container, and use the swab to put some. I would say get some sterile saline, which you can get at any drugstore, because sterile saline is something that home health people need. So sterile saline in a sterile cup, and get a cup. I would say get a cup big enough that you could, like, just drop the whole Q-tip into, and we'll go from there. So you could get a sterile glass tube. See, the thing is, if we don't moisten it, I'm afraid it'll dry out. If we seal it in a sterile glass tube, maybe that would keep it from thickening up. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to experiment. We're going to have to experiment and see which are the best recoveries, because we really, at this point, we don't know what we're dealing with, what the substance is. So it's going to take multiple specimens coming in, multiple recoveries. There's no way to know at this point. But I would say the surest thing to do is collect it in such a way that we're not contaminating it. So get you some gloves, some disposable, mostly latex gloves are hard to find now because of the allergy. So, like purple nitrile exam gloves. So, and that's to protect yourself as well. Yeah, powder free. Of course, I can find the that the starch shows up in a heartbeat. But collect it, put it in a sterile cup or a sterile glass tube, and we'll go from there.
And honestly, I would wear a mask as well.
Yeah, like a particulate mask.
You can get sterile. I guess you would call them Q-tips. They're not Q-tips, but you can get the sterile ones. I mean, anybody can go and buy them at a medical sterile swab at any medical supply store. I mean, if you're going to be doing collecting, I would suggest do that. I wouldn't use Q-tips because you never know, what things could change in the factory where Q-tips are made.
Right, but they're not sterile, but they're sanitary. It's like the swabs. I have two different types. I have the ones I use in my. See, I don't know where people that don't work in laboratories get this stuff, because I can literally reach behind my head right now and grab a sterile swab. Literally. I mean, I'm working in the micro department, or the urinalysis micro department. I've got the hood right behind me. So I don't know what it costs or where to get this stuff. I take it for granted that if I want, if I don't go crazy, if I need a sterile swab to do something, nobody, it's not going to be a career-ending maneuver to take one. So, for the last 21 years, I've been surrounded by the stuff. I don't know where somebody doesn't work in my field can catch, where you can get this stuff reasonable.
Medical supply stores.
Check eBay.
Okay. There's medical supply stores almost everywhere, and stuff like swabs and stuff generally aren't too expensive. Now there's some stuff that is, but swabs usually aren't.
Yeah, I set Cooper. When I came to the Paracon last year, I gave Eric Cooper a field kit, but like I said, the stuff was things I've had forever that I wouldn't even know where to. I wouldn't even notice that kind of store because that's not something I'm not going to be sitting in there. Where am I going to buy? It's like tomorrow I need to grab a swab at work. That's
right.
Just, it's a paradigm thing. So, eBay, health supply stores. Look at the health and beauty aids section of Walmart. I'm sure the stuff is out there. It's just something I don't look for.
Even the dollar store has some of that stuff.
I would say the hardest thing to find is going to be the containers, the sterile tubes to put it in.
Right.
That is just, that's something.
But you can find that in science supply stores. Test tubes.
Yeah, I would say that might be. Yeah, I would say probably looking up, like an eBay or some kind of, just Google sterile specimen tubes, and I would say go for at least, 5 inches long. Ideally, what would be good is to get the old sterile glass tubes that had the screw top, because then you could get your swab, stick it down in there, break the swab off. That's how we used to do collections. You'd break the swab off even with the top, and then, screw the top on. The swab and the specimen are all inside that sterile tube. And then I would use sterile forceps to get that out. And, of course, then I'll work with if this stuff is water soluble, I've got an aqueous solution to work with. If it's not water soluble, that's going to be interesting in its own right.
Right.
I would like everybody to do two. I would suggest get 2 samples. Get one that's in sterile saline, and one that's in no saline, but some kind of sealed tube, so it's not going to evaporate. And we can compare. That would be the best way to do it. That way, I've got one of each, and I can design what research what I'm getting out of.
And actually, for any listeners that aren't on Facebook that are listening to the show, what's your email that they can contact you through?
Oh, e.markham@yahoo.com. If it gets too crazy, I'll just shut it down.
Right.
Or I'll, if I get.
You're going to be the government, are you?
Huh?
So you're going to play the government? If it gets too hectic, you just go home.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'm the kind of guy that shows up sick as hell, because if I'm going to be sick and feel like crap, I want to get paid for
Everybody else is too.
Yeah. Look, I work on the phone. If I showed up with laryngitis, I wasn't giving up work.
So I just took a look real quick, and there's, I think, 2 of those medical supply stores in Mount Vernon, just by themselves. So yeah, it's actually pretty easy to find that stuff.
I may, what I will do tonight, I'll be over in hematology tonight, and it's not quite the same workload. I will look for I'll try and find a source list. I'll try and find a place to find this stuff, whether it's eBay, health supply, where people can, find what we need for this at a reasonable price. And, just make a source, buy this here, buy this, that kind of thing. And I'll post it on...
What a steal.
Do what?
I said, what a steal.
Yeah. And if
Don
works in a hospital, yeah.
I believe it was Don that mentioned that we need a protocol in place. And I believe you set up a protocol that's actually in the Forest Moon Paranormal Files section.
Yeah,
so you can actually find you can actually find the Scientific Collection Protocol in our group.
And if you can't, I'll look through my flash drive and see if because I did one for what to do if we're doing like a home investigation for paranormal, and I'm pretty sure I did an evidence collection one too for Paracon. So, and if not, I will.
Send them both to me on email or on Facebook. I'll make sure they get re-uploaded because I think they are still in there. Okay. But yeah, you can find the protocols for Scientific Collection as well as scientific theories and whatnot, and protocols for paranormal investigations and whatnot. So we'll make sure we get them.
If all else fails, reach out to me either through email or through. Here, I'll put my email in the chat room.
There you go.
But if all else fails, just reach out to me and say, "Hey, I've got this. How do I collect it?" And we'll work out from there. I mean, there's going to be screw ups. Obviously, I'm going to misunderstand something, say collect it this way, and find out that cotton swab interferes with it, and we need to go to a synthetic swab. We'll just take it as it comes. I mean, that happens in our clinical things, because if we're doing a strep swab on somebody, we have to use a polyester swab, because if you use a cotton swab, we found out after years of false negatives that cotton interferes with the strep's ability to, the assay's ability to pick up the organism. So we had to go to synthetics. So, it's, that's why they call it experiment. It's just, I think what was happening, the cotton was absorbing the strep to the point where we couldn't extract it out. I'll have to look into that. But I know, we use a synthetic polyester. We use a less absorbent, like a polyester swab, to collect throat swabs for that.
Right. And I so hated those strep tests. Oh, my God. When I was a kid.
So I
used to bring them home and do them on the kids. I got a sore throat. I'm not going to go. Yeah, I brought them home without. Well, I brought them home. I brought some kids home without saying, I can't go to school. I got strep throat. To you? Yeah. Nope. Sorry. Yeah, it's like when we first when I first married my ex. That was the kids tried that. Whether they knew what I did and just wanted to see if I'd cut, if it was real or if they could pull something. It's like, let's say, we'll see about that.
You're right.
I'm feeling better now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
throat sore. Well, it's not strep, so you'll live.
Yeah, when you can call them on it, it's like with my kids trying to pull things. It's like I'm going to go do this. It's like, you really want me to believe that?
Yeah. Like my dad told me, he said, there ain't nothing you can think of that I haven't already done.
Right.
I hardly ever missed school because it was totally against the rules, but kids these days, they're missing school all the time.
See, I never missed school because I didn't like the kids, so I figured all the rest of the kids were skipping. The best place for me was in school.
I pulled one time where I skipped for about a week, and I thought, man, I have got this down pat. I didn't, this was 5th grade, and finally it's like, the school called, saying, where's Eric? And I mean, I had it down to a science, because it's like I hung out in the woods until Dad, Mom went to work. I'd be sitting there waiting for the bus. Her car would disappear. Into the woods I would go. Then I'd look, and, okay, Dad's gone to work now. So then I was like, I was kicking back and having a great time. I didn't realize that they would all communicate.
Yeah. Little did we know.
Best week of my young life.
That's so much better than going, grade 4, the best 3 years of my life.
Yeah.
Sadly, that's the one thing in the educational system that has dropped the ball badly. They don't fail kids that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I've got experience with a college graduate who can't, to this day, can't spell.
You really got to wonder how they got to college.
Well, they can spell if spell check catches it, but spell check doesn't know the difference between when you want to say the word N-O as a negative or K-N-O-W as in knowledge. So I'm sitting there seeing synonymous words in the wrong context. They're spelled right, but they're not where they need to be.
Yeah.
Well, what's just as bad is when you go to a store and the clerk can't count change because the cash register broke.
The one that scares me is the one I saw where they couldn't count change and the cash register told them how much it was.
Now I could never count. I could never count it back. I could never do like the old. And 10 is where they would count back and say 90 and no. I could always say and 12. Your change is 1150 or whatever. I could do that, but I never got the hang of counting it back.
Yeah, no. And I'll tell you what. To be honest, I'm a pretty intelligent guy. But I don't spell worth a shit. Now, I spell better than the guy that you were talking about.
Language.
Yeah, I know. Got caught on my own thing there.
I got you back.
Yeah.
I got you back.
Yeah, I love it. Anyways, but yeah, I can't spell worth a crap. But I spell better than the guy that you're talking about. But I still have a hard time with it. And my IQ is like 140. But spelling is not my thing.
See, I'm lucky. I got diagnosed mentally retarded. I've got a perfect excuse not to know what I'm doing.
All right.
You got an excuse, right?
Hey, the doctor said I'm not insane, but didn't say anything about my brain.
All right, we're getting down to the last 4 minutes of the show. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks to the panel for being here. Next week is our all-famous every month roundtable. And we're going to see about getting some special guests into the roundtable this month. And hopefully my voice is, back to normal. We'll see. But any last thoughts?
I think that if we do another one on geoengineering at some point, probably the one thing that we didn't touch on was HAARP. And you almost can't do any geoengineering without touching on HAARP because of what they do. But I think we should talk about that at some point.
HAARP is a show by itself.
Yeah, and HAARP is like that Pine Gap. There's a truth to HAARP, and then there's a mythology that has grown around HAARP.
Oh yeah.
There's a vacuum. There's a vacuum of information about it, and people filled that vacuum with just anything that seemed plausible. So it's a little bit difficult. I found when I wrote my article about Pine Gap that it was very difficult to separate, truth
Fact
from
fiction.
fancy. Yeah, without being there. Without actually being, trying to investigate something on the internet that's half a world away was difficult. The best I could come up with, there's probably something going on there, but we don't.
Yeah, what exactly?
We're not
is it?
sure what. Yeah, there's a legitimate what they do, what they say they do, and that we can document that this is what they do. But then why are so many people employed there? We're talking, a buttload of people in the middle of nowhere, and and what they do is amazing in itself. And then you take the amazing what they already do, and put the overlay of myth over it, and it's epic. It's amazing. It takes something that's already amazing and supercharges it. Nah, I don't think so. I think with Pine Gap, it's more intelligence gathering, and it's, you know, they probably know some things that aren't out there for general consumption, but I don't think they're as
like
nefarious
HAARP,
as it looks. HAARP, I'm wondering, you know, HAARP has got...
You know, weather and the mudslides and the hurricanes and all these other things that are taking lives, you know, slowly but surely, you know.
Well, I mean, it's no...
Their madness, but...
There's no doubt that you can use microwaves to heat up an atmosphere and manipulate. Now, can you
they show you
make enough microwaves?
How to take electrons and move clouds this way and that. Like, how hard is it to do it in the real world? Like, that was just a long time ago.
You got to wonder how the wave... Right, cloud, but... Well, it's just a matter of scale. What you can do in a test tube and what you can do in a macro setting. You know, how much power would it actually take unless you have some way of propagating a wave that you know, like a ripple in the pond that doesn't dissipate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we ought to do I think we need to do a HAARP show.
It's already on the schedule.
Yeah, we'll. I think we're going to do that. So
yeah,
all right.
HAARP's already on the schedule, and it actually goes into mind control as well. There's a lot more with HAARP than meets the eye.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for listening. Corey, take us home.
Okay, I will do that here. I would like to thank our panel tonight, Mr. Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, our Keith Andrews, astrologer and alien specialist for Forest Moon Paranormal, and Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson of Four Corners Paranormal. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time as we have our monthly roundtable, where all of our panelists will bring 3 questions to the table for us to discuss and go over of all things paranormal and conspiracy. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. I would also like to thank all of our listeners, because without you, there is no S4. Good night, everyone, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.